look at the pros and cons. I don't wanna be sitting here speculating. You know, if we're looking at half a dozen different things, each of us might have a knee-jerk reaction to one or another, and I'd like them to be brought back when we're in a position to be given the pros and cons of each.
I mean, I guess, 4 years ago, David, how much was the override that we benefited from 4 years ago?
It's 1.2
It was
million.
1.2, okay. I mean, and again, it's not the way we wanna plan long-term fiscally, but if we got an override for $1.2 million, which, retrospectively seems like a modest amount, but it carried us through
It
pretty
sustained
good
us, yeah, we
years.
didn't grow.
And now we're in, I think, the 4th year, and we're feeling the impact of being in the 4th year. Maybe that is the most obvious solution, is to try to get back at least to the at least to the restoration area. I mean, it's possible just to get status quo, we might need override. You guys have acknowledged that the revenue
Right.
projections and such, that we may have to do that. So if 1.2 brings us just about to the restoration budget. $1.2 million. And then, looking at that, and as David suggested, going to the far right column there. And maybe so you try to extract from that column some of the things that are most necessary. And if we're gonna try to look for an override, try to look for something that's going to incorporate some of those things into it, still becomes an override which we feel is reasonable, and the community would consider. And at least it sets us on a path for the next 3 fiscal years that we can keep our head above water.
And there is
It's
some.
never gonna be a solution.
There is some merit to considering, trying to go for the least amount possible that would, more than status quo, more than sustain us, but put us back a year. Because hopefully there are some issues changing on the revenue side. The Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator are moving forward with the reduced health insurance options. And that will take some time to work out, because it has to be bargained with unions, but, some other insurance carriers are listening to, the options that the government's put forward, and they're responding with reduced plans. Yes, so it's almost opened up more options, that there could be some savings there. There's the debt service that the town should take some reductions, I think. The high school might be coming off. And if the batch lump sum comes in, that helps with that debt service picture as well. So,
Well,
there is
yeah,
some
the reduction of
hope.
debt service doesn't help in our
2 or 3
appropriation,
years.
but it certainly helps in the
Well, it
mindset
does
of
in
the
the amount
community
that's
as far
paid
as-
towards,
Right.
because the debt
Right.
service payment comes off the
Right,
top.
right.
So we would see a piece of
Right.
that come towards the school department. So there is some hope, some small.
Not the debt service that is there as a result of an override, it doesn't.
No.
Some of the other
No.
bonding.
Well, the bonding
but-
and the capital, we've purchased a lot of capital.
At any rate, I appreciate the administrative council trying to come up with some solutions, but I just don't know that it gets us.
Here's my question, and I think I agree with you, and I hear where Mr. Jervy's coming from on not putting them out there. But we're walking a fine line here. I mean, how long do we go with kind of keeping these things internal, whether it be potential budget cuts if we have, to cut $600,000?
Well, I think that's real. I think that, if we're looking at
Or-
$600,000 more additional cuts.
But I guess some of
those might be.
some of the ideas at some point, and maybe tonight's not the point, deserve or merit public discussion and attention. Some of the ideas going forward with this, the quote, smart reorganization. So I think
I suppose we could come up with a stipend for every family who wants to homeschool their kids too.
That's
But that
actually-
would take a big burden off of the,
that's what the
School
stipend
department.
would be.
you know.
That's true. That's not.
I'm
on
just
the
throwing it
list.
out, it's,
No, I-
there may not be any.
Some states have
It-
actually.
It may not be any more, really?
Well, there's certain proposals on how justice.
You're ahead of your time.
Absolutely.
No, but I'm just saying, it may not be any more radical than some of the
Right.
things we're gonna hear, right?
Again, part of the reason for cautiously putting this out there is that there's a tremendous amount of planning needs to go into putting together a quality school district. And when you are faced with the prospect on an annual basis of cutting again and again, you are doing that outside of any real constructive plan. And so, it's a catch-22. How do you go, I agree, just taking that one issue of, it's a complete 180 turnaround on the use of our buildings that we, having gone to the MSBA last week to say we've just opened a school that has 4 kindergarten that's designed to deal with 4 classes per grade, full-time kindergarten, full for all children without a fee, and a preschool class in each of our 3 elementary schools. And so the whole idea of turning that around is, changing that is totally opposite to what we've been planning, but it's the pushing that with the prospect of making these, I'm happy to go through what would $1 million reduction look like? Just $1 million. How would you go about making that decision? It's not within the framework of any kind of real plan other than just let's cut this out, let's cut that out.
We're beyond that, I think.
We are
You know,
beyond.
wholesale programs,
Yeah.
no foreign languages.
Right.
something.
Mr. Nelson?
The budget process is so incremental. When I say incremental, I mean that it takes anyone dealing with it some time to absorb what the process feels like. In other words, school administration is thinking about FY09 right now, whereas the general public is still dealing with FY08, meaning this school year, and the Wednesday closings and the loss of fine arts and all that. So it's been an interesting process as we've begun to talk about smart reorganization, because no one likes any of them.
Mhm.
In other words, it's not as though there are people on the administrative staff supporting the concept of changing the grade levels at the schools. It's all a reaction to reality. And while we're sitting here hoping that the school budget might be a 2 or 3% increase next year, which will mean we won't have to do some of the more radical things, the facts remain that the latest available funds number that we're dealing with is still 1%. And I think those closest to the process I'm hoping that's wrong, but I think those of us closest to the process don't think it's going to be much different than that.
Well, again, it makes it an easy decision for us as a committee, I think. We have to plan and for what we're gonna have to do if it is 1%. David has to tell us what his recommendations are if it's gonna be 1%. Because if it's 1%, I mean, you're looking at cuts of $900,000. And if it's, so clearly we need to seek additional revenues. I don't think any restructuring is gonna solve our problem. We need to find more revenues, and the obvious way to find more revenues is through an override. So I think we have to decide how much are we gonna ask for, what's it gonna be used for, and if we don't get it, where does it leave us?
And I think, to your point, Jerry, that you made earlier, while I understand that the drive for smart reorganization, I look at it long-term and I see the same problems there. We would do all this reorganization and then 3 years down the road, we're looking for an override again.
Yes, I mean,
Or 2, and so I guess.
There's no guarantee that
there's
that-
right, you don't know the long-term benefits of that reorg. As long as the funding mechanism stays as it is today.
But some of these are things that a label should do because, they make sense.
Right.
If we can't restore anything at the high school, we do need to look at reducing the graduation requirements. It makes no sense to eliminate PE and dump all those kids into an art or music
Creative
or
writing,
elective.
right.
So few of those kids. Send the high school kids home early and let them go to work.
I mean, I remember when we got the 1.2
Rather
million,
than put them all in one room.
in the override, basically 4 years ago, people were yelling and screaming, well, we should use some of it, not all of it, but it did get us through for years, and we had to be innovative every year, every fiscal year with fees and looking for some relief from the town side, but at least it got us to a point where we were, getting by. I hate to say getting by, but that's what we're doing, getting by. Now we're back to where we were 4 years ago.
I'd love to explore merging school and town services, with the library, because there's a department that always takes a hit when the town's making cuts, the library gets shut down, and our library gets shut down. So I think looking at some kind of combined services makes sense.
Right.
in that area.
I think there are things on this list that aren't as radical as
That we should do.
reorganizing the 3 elementary schools that we should probably be thinking of anyway.
It's, and that's what they're
Right.
labeled, should do, we should
Right.
explore them, it makes sense. You know, so I mean, I appreciate, it's gotta be a lot of work that goes into this, because at the same time, you're working out the annual budget.
The other thing about an override too is it looks like, from what I can see, the enrollment's gonna level off over the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, that's, it appears that that's gonna happen. That'll be some source of relief for us.
That was the 3-year staffing plan that was gonna meet our 3-year enrollment leveling off.
But it looks like enrollment's gonna level off in the next 4 or 5 years.
I hope you're right, I'm just nervous about all the new
Yeah.
construction.
I understand, and I think that's a variable that we don't really know, what's gonna happen there, but at least the projections seem to indicate.
One concern to me is our projections this year in the past for kindergarten, I think it was last year or this year, where we got, 30 or 40 more kids than we expected, and actually, I just have a concern with seeing that happening, that, we could be in for more
A lot of
surprises,
our
I hope
enrollment
not.
projections are based on birth rate, right?
Right.
As opposed to how many people are moving into this
Right.
town and buying houses that, maybe older people are leaving.
Yeah, yeah.
Younger people are
But
moving in stuff.
if it does level off, obviously that gives us some breathing room to try to address these issues. I guess what I'd like to do now, though, is, Dave, can you address in kind of a general way, if we had to cut $1 million, what are some of the things that would look like?
I'm just gonna read this, right?
Okay.
Okay, I'll read some of it.
No.
And, and again, this has only been discussed in a preliminary way, even with the administrators, because the magnitude of this is so, we obviously would go back into expenses and see where is there anything else we could shave off? And so I'm just putting a number, we would look at instructional expenses across the 5 schools and find $20,000, it's minimal. We would virtually eliminate anything that's left in the curriculum budget. Remember, we already eliminated the department, or reduced the time when the department heads took up the mentor program. There's a little bit of money left in there, we would like that out. That would be around $50,000.
Is that against the contract?
No.
No, we don't have to provide.
We, as a district, the state says we need to provide professional development.
In our contract, a department heads is supposed to have that right, so would you just not
If-
call them department heads?
Right.
We signed a memorandum of agreement this year that was for 1 year, and any
For
other
1
changes
year.
would have to be
Right.
negotiated. So what I'm saying is we would just
Eliminate.
just eliminate.
Right.
No, we would eliminate the money.
The money,
In
right.
the budget.
Right.
We would not, in the budget for the last number of years, we have what we call small capital. Most of that is technology based, is textbook based. We have $120,000 in there to continue working with our cycle of replacing textbooks. All of that would be gone. We would eliminate that $100,000. We would, out of the cost of running extracurricular activities, the school district supports a portion, a percentage of that. You know that we charge a fee, $125
Right.
per student in grade 6 up. We would do away with after-school activities, and it would be strictly a fee-based program. Athletics are, again, we have the latest statistics, I think it's about, we spend about 50, we support about 56%.
It's about
It's a
200,000,
little more than,
200,000.
yes, a little higher.
A little higher when you add in the athletic director's salary. and-
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Close.
close.
Right.
So, I would, again, I would continue to shift that balance and either eliminate either eliminate